Okay, guys, sorry about that. There was a little technical difficulty with the Zoom link, but I am here now, Tom Fulkerson, your qualifying broker. Welcome to Broker Talk Time Q&A. Today, we're going to talk about protecting buyers, and I appreciate you all taking the time to join me today, and sorry for the delay in getting started. All right, so Stephen, can we go ahead and go to the first slide, please? Let's see here. Hold on a minute. Okay, so we've had some issues coming up. I wanted to touch base with you guys about some recent issues I've dealt with along with Angie. And one of them had to do with lender required repairs. So, what we're suggesting is that you use the GAR special stipulation 524 to add to all offers where there is a conventional loan exhibit. We're seeing conventional appraisers come in above purchase price but require repairs, and the appraisal contingency language doesn't address that required repairs in the conventional loan exhibit. So if you add special stipulation 524 under lender required repairs, it says that any repairs required by the lender are to be completed and paid for by buyer or seller prior to closing, provided with repairs do not exceed a dollar figure in total cost. In the event the anticipated costs exceed the amount listed above, an itemized estimate shall be provided to all parties from third-party contractors selected by the seller of the total cost of repairs to be made to the property. Seller or buyer shall have the option to pay the excess amount. If the parties do not agree in writing as to who will pay the excess amount, then this agreement shall terminate within 3 days of written notice of itemized estimate. So there you go. That is for your buyer's protections. And we're seeing more and more lenders that are requiring repairs. I don't know what that is a result of. All I know is it's happening, and we need to be prepared. So I wanted to bring that to your attention. Are there any questions about that? Okay, then we can go on to the next slide. All right, so I also wanted to bring this to your attention today because, again, these are all a result of broker conversations that I'm having with agents or Angie. And we just want to make sure that we're bringing this to your attention. Representing a buyer during the due diligence period. First of all, please verify utilities such as public water and sewer, and do not simply rely on the description in MLS. We are dealing with a situation right now where one of our buyers bought a property and the FMLS sheet said it was connected to the sewer, only to find out that it's on septic after she's already closed. And now she's had to pay for $5,000 in septic repairs. So all this can be avoided real easily if you just do your homework during your due diligence period. It's more than about a property inspection. It's about verifying utilities, title, so on and so forth. If the property has renovations or newly finished spaces, check with the building permit department, planning and development and zoning to see if the improvements were permitted or if there are any open permits. Remember, once the buyer closes, any violations of permits become the buyer's problem. So if you've got a property that you're getting ready to write an offer on and you go under contract and it has a finished basement, this would be a good example of making sure during your due diligence that that all of the work was permitted and that those permits are no longer open. Always do a final walkthrough. Always email inspection reports to seller's broker and agent. and then always ask the lender to order the title exam and any flood certifications ASAP. Right now, with all the heavy rain we're experiencing in the last couple of days, I'm sure there's lots of flooded basements out there that are under contract, and that's going to become an issue. So, any questions about that? Okay, and it's simple as just asking the seller to provide copies of their utility bills. All right, on to the next slide, please. Representing a buyer. This is a GAR form buyer's broker's notice to the seller of seller's obligations regarding lead-based paint. Always send this F317 buyer's broker's notice to seller of seller's obligations regarding lead-based paint to the seller if any portion of the dwelling predates 1978. Please note, this is only required if the seller is paying the buyer broker compensation, but that may or may not be negotiated. So it's best just to email this notice to the seller's agent, which will be considered delivery to the seller. And why is this legally the seller's responsibility to deliver the CB04 lead-based paint pamphlet? Make sure you send it to the buyer. Any questions about that? Y'all are very.
I did have a question. So this is if the seller is paying the buyer's broker, not if the seller's, like if the listing agent is splitting their commission, then I do not need this. Is that correct?
You do not need to do it if the listing broker is sharing their compensation with you as a buyer's broker.
Okay, thank you.
It's not going to hurt for you to send it, but you don't need it if unless the seller is paying you, the buyer's broker, directly. So in other words, if the seller is paying their listing agent from real estate company A, and they're also paying Keller Williams for bringing them a buyer, then you would need to use this notice. But again, it doesn't hurt to send it. It's simply a notice. But that it is required if in fact they are paying you directly. Does that clear it up?
There is now, since it's a notice, does it become part of the contract?
The notice is not part of the contract. The notice is just a reminder of the seller to of their obligation regarding lead-based paint. So if any part of the dwelling was built prior to 1978, then they should have a lead-based paint exhibit to present to you as the buyer's agent. But for some reason they don't, and you know that the property was built prior to 78, then this notice is just to remind them that they need to provide you with a lead-based paint exhibit.
Right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. All right, let's move on. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is part 2 of the agreement, and this always deliver the email F317 buyer's broker's notice to seller of seller's obligation regarding lead-based paint to the seller in initial section G on page 2 of the exhibit. Again, this is only required if the seller's paying the buyer broker compensation, but that may or may not be negotiated. So it's best just to email the notice to the seller, which would be considered delivery to the seller, even though it's not necessary if you know that the listing agent is sharing their compensation with you. It's really a moot point. Also, while it's legally the seller's responsibility to deliver the CB04 lead-based paint pamphlet, make sure you send it to the buyer. The reason we're having these discussions regarding lead-based paint, guys, is because the fines on this are a minimum $10,000. And we're just constantly trying to make sure you all understand your obligation when dealing with an older property. Okay, next slide, please, Stephen. All right, so this is your lead-based paint exhibit. It protects your family from lead in your home to the buyer or their agent. And when this pamphlet is emailed to the buyer's agent, it's considered delivered to the buyer. So this is your pamphlet. If I'm a good buyer's agent, I'm probably going to go ahead and pull this and any other related pamphlets and give those to the buyer when we sign a buyer brokerage agreement. Barbara wanted to know if this is a new one. I don't know that it's been updated, but this is the current one as of 2025.
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome. Okay, let's move on, guys. Next slide, please. All right, well, that was the last slide. Please, guys, make sure that you're verifying utilities. I can't tell you how many calls I get about surprise issues with septic tanks. But all that can be cleared up if you merely just ask a seller for a copy of all of their utility bills. And this used to be pretty standard practice when I was a younger agent, but we got kind of out of the habit. I know there's a lot going on, but we need to be doing that. And also, I generally will go to our preferred closing attorney, whoever that might be in your particular office, if I'm going to list a property, and go ahead and have them pull title just to make sure I'm not walking into a surprise when I list a piece of property. So that's a really good advice for you to to stay on top of. All right. Are there any other questions unrelated to this that you need me for this afternoon? All right. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. If you are available at 1 o'clock, Angie will be teaching Contracts 101 Part 2. And part 3 will be next week. And I hope you all have a great Monday and an excellent week. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. You as well.
Appreciate it.